Hello everyone, today I want to talk to you about the looming US tariff deadline. The US announced that the plan to reach 90 agreements will fall through. In addition, China has revealed a suspected new type of graphite bomb. Since the US is staying silent, why shouldn't China use the news about the graphite bomb to put some pressure on Taiwan? Recently, China has been continuously revealing its successful experiences in military confrontations abroad, and now it has showcased what appears to be a new type of graphite bomb. On June 16th, CCTV posted an animated video on social media demonstrating a weapon that can deploy graphite bombs. It is said that this weapon can destroy enemy power plants and command systems, causing a total blackout in the targeted area, which has attracted widespread attention from the public. The CCTV animation shows that this weapon, called the WS-600, has a minimum range of 80 kilometers and a maximum range of 290 kilometers. It can be launched from land-based or sea-based platforms and offers a variety of warhead options, including penetration and blast warheads, which are mainly used to strike targets such as command centers, buildings, airport runways, and transportation hubs. In addition, there is a semi-armor-piercing warhead mainly used to strike naval vessels on the sea. Other options include a cluster warhead, which primarily targets personnel, such as enemy soldiers and radar positions, as well as a conductive fiber warhead. Among them, the conductive fiber warhead weighs 490 kilograms and contains 90 submunitions. It is used to destroy military substations, power plants, and other power supply and distribution systems, with a maximum coverage area of no less than 10,000 square meters. A standard soccer field is about 7,140 square meters, which means the conductive fiber warhead can attack an area roughly the size of 1.5 soccer fields. The video footage shows that the submunitions of this warhead will bounce up after hitting the ground, then explode in the air, releasing chemically treated carbon fiber filaments or powder, thereby causing short circuits in high-voltage power infrastructure. However, CCTV did not provide more information about the weapon system, only referring to it as a mysterious domestically produced missile. It is still unclear what stage of development the weapon system is in, or whether it has already been deployed and is in service with the Chinese military. The report states that although CCTV did not explicitly identify the weapon as a graphite bomb, its characteristics closely match those of known graphite bombs. Many netizens quickly commented below the video, speculating that this weapon is intended to target the power system in Taiwan. A graphite bomb is a type of weapon designed to paralyze enemy power systems, also known as a blackout bomb or power killer. Its warhead contains a large amount of fine, chemically treated carbon fibers, graphite filaments, or dust. After detonating in the air, it disperses and can lodge into high-voltage electrical equipment, causing short circuits and resulting in widespread power outages. It doesn't rely on physically destroying facilities, but instead paralyzes power to disrupt the enemy's command, communication, and control systems. This allows for tactical suppression without open warfare or causing significant damage. In 1970, Chen Undi, an editor of the semi-official magazine Modern Ships, published a commentary describing the graphite bomb as an unconventional weapon that could be a game-changer for the PLA in future conflicts. He said that attacking the enemy's power infrastructure has always been a strategic focus in warfare. Chen Undi stated that current military strategy is gradually shifting from destroying enemy personnel to paralyzing their operational systems, especially by targeting networks for command, control, communications, computers, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. Graphite bombs offer a new way to bypass heavily defended facilities and indirectly achieve system paralysis. He also said that this type of weapon has already been adopted by the Chinese military, but at that time it was an earlier, less advanced version, with warhead weight and coverage area about half of what they are now. He mentioned that graphite bombs can be equipped with fin-guided correctional munitions, which are devices installed at the tail of the ammunition for high-precision guidance. This device can be integrated with the Beidou satellite navigation system in the future, thereby further improving strike accuracy. Chen Undi said that in the future, this type of weapon is very likely to be integrated into China's cruise missiles, playing a devastating role in warfare. The South China Morning Post noted that the US military has already used more traditional graphite bombs multiple times in actual combat. For example, in Iraq, the US military equipped Tomahawk cruise missiles with PLU-14B graphite warheads, which once paralyzed 85% of Iraq's national power grid, plunging the enemy's military command, air defense, and government agencies into darkness. During the Kosovo War, for instance, the US F-117 stealth fighter dropped CBU-102 bombs equipped with graphite warheads, crippling nearly 70% of Serbia's power system and forcing Serbia to accept NATO's demands. On July 1st, RIA Novosti also took note of this new type of Chinese weapon. Citing military expert Vasily Kashin, the report stated that the target of graphite bombs is not power plants, but rather power grid infrastructure, such as transmission lines and transformers at substations. Now, China is unveiling an upgraded version of the graphite bomb, clearly aimed at Taiwan and intended to curb the surging tide of pro-independence forces. China has also taken note of the reality that US President Trump doesn't really care about Taiwan's fate. Trump's indifferent attitude toward Taiwan has long been apparent. On the day the US and China reached a 90-day trade war agreement, Trump said in a speech at the White House on July 12 that China had agreed to open its markets, which was very good for both China and the US, and he also believed it was good for unification and peace. Trump's sudden mention of China's unification with Taiwan was truly startling. The U.S. State Department immediately clarified that Trump's remarks were directed at U.S.-China trade relations. The United States' policy toward Taiwan has not changed. Statements from the American Institute in Taiwan also said that President Trump was clearly speaking in the context of U.S.-China trade relations, and that U.S. policy toward Taiwan remains unchanged. Over decades and through different administrations, the U.S. position on Taiwan has always been consistent. However, Reuters quoted 7 sources as saying that these remarks have already caused significant concern within Taiwan's diplomatic circles, with worries that the U.S. policy toward Taiwan may be changing. An unnamed senior Taiwanese official is concerned about whether Trump might alter the status quo and accept the reality of Taiwan being unified. In fact, when it comes to Bush, Taiwan, and Ukraine, the situation is similar. The intention is just to gain some local benefits, but there is no desire to become directly involved in local military conflicts. That's why Trump kept pressuring TSMC to set up factories in the US, increasing the demands again and again. In addition, he announced a so-called reciprocal tariff of 32% on Taiwan, but at the same time pretended to support Taiwan's independence and confrontation with mainland China. Now Trump wants to visit China again, even hoping to go during the September 3rd military parade in Beijing for the 80th anniversary of the victory in the War of Resistance, to appear alongside President Xi Jinping and Russian President Putin as a trio, reenacting the dream of the Yalta Conference. Since the US now needs something from China, China doesn't mind putting some pressure on Taiwan either. Recently, the US and Taiwan have made some routine small moves. First, they invited a Taiwanese delegation to the U.S. to observe joint exercises by the U.S. Air Force units. Second, the House Appropriations Committee included a $500 million budget for aid to Taiwan in the 2026 fiscal year defense appropriations bill. Mainland China responded firmly and unreservedly. On June 26, Senior Colonel Zhang Xiaojiang, spokesperson for the Ministry of National Defense, criticized U.S. actions at a press conference, stating, "We firmly oppose any military collusion between the U.S. and Taiwan, whether military aid, arms sales, or any other pretext." The U.S. is trying to bring the flames of war to Taiwan, once again seeking to destroy and harm Taiwan, with extremely sinister intentions. It seems that the Chinese Communist Party will respond with the toughest stance on Taiwan-related matters. In addition, the U.S. tariff war appears to be all bark and no bite. July 9 marks the deadline for the U.S. to reinstate tariffs, but the Trump administration is adjusting its trade negotiation strategy, shifting from seeking a comprehensive trade agreement to a more limited, phased agreement. This is to avoid a breakdown in negotiations and to reimpose strict tariffs on some major trading partners, which will impact the market. Looking back, when Trump announced broad reciprocal tariffs targeting the world on April 2, it caused a huge stir in the global trade market. On April 9, Trump suspended reciprocal tariffs on most of America's foreign trade partners for a period of 90 days, postponing the implementation of high tariffs until July 9. But that date is now fast approaching. According to the latest media reports, U.S. officials are seeking to reach phased agreements with countries and regions that have high trade volumes. The United States hopes to reach a principled agreement with a few major trading regions before the deadline. This marks a significant retreat from the White House's earlier ambitious plan to reach 90 trade agreements within the 90-day suspension period. The United States has agreed to these narrower, principled agreements. If other countries reach relatively narrow principled agreements with the US, they will be exempt from harsher reciprocal tariffs. But the more difficult issue is that negotiations must continue, while during this transition period, the current 10% unilateral tariffs imposed by the United States will still apply. Due to the tight negotiation timeline, the US can only reach principled agreements with these countries and regions. The United States is still considering imposing additional tariffs on key industries, which further complicates the negotiations. Bloomberg, citing sources familiar with the matter, reported that the United States is close to reaching agreements with some countries or regions, including Taiwan and Indonesia, and may also reach agreements with Vietnam and South Korea. According to Bloomberg, Trump's senior advisory team said they expect that before the 90-day deadline, the US will reach principled agreements with a dozen or so of its largest trading partners. However, if we go by the clues provided by the agreements Trump reached with China and the UK, it is very likely that future agreements will not be comprehensive deals that resolve core issues, but rather principled agreements addressing limited matters, with many detailed issues left for future negotiations. Duke University Law School professor Mel, who specializes in international trade, said, "I expect the White House will announce some frameworks that are called trade agreements, but they won't meet anyone's general understanding of what an agreement actually is." As for the other dozens of countries that can't even reach a principled framework agreement, Trump has threatened to impose new tariffs on them, with rates 10 percentage points higher, during the negotiation period. Meanwhile, U.S. Treasury Secretary Blinken said that most of these are relatively small trading partners. Blinken said that about 20 countries that failed to reach an agreement by July 9 can continue negotiations, but their tariffs will revert to the higher reciprocal tariff rates announced by Trump on April 2 this year. However, if the U.S. government believes they are negotiating in good faith, the tariff rate can still be maintained at 10%. However, Trump's stance was not as friendly as Blinken's. He reiterated that he would unilaterally set tariff rates for some countries, and might even implement them before July 9. He said that the United States would not reach separate agreements with hundreds of countries. He said, "We'll do whatever we want. We'll just send a letter to everyone saying, 'Congratulations, your country will be subject to a 25% tariff.'" To sum it up, first, the United States has set a self-imposed 90-day deadline to temporarily postpone reciprocal tariffs. Trump boasted that he would reach 90 agreements within 90 days, but that plan is sure to fall through. Second, the current situation is quite chaotic, but it's estimated that there are a dozen or 20 of America's main trading partners, and many of them will reach agreements with the US, but these will only be rather vague, principled framework agreements. Third, Trump may be extremely ruthless towards smaller countries, possibly directly announcing reciprocal tariffs of 10% or even several dozen percent, bullying them to the fullest extent. Trump's actions prove that the international community is just a primordial jungle.